Hey everyone, it seems the liberals have finally gone after the wrong people. And this in regards to, and you're seeing multiple articles, and the fact that it's coming out just days after the Fraser Institute study that was published, in regards to the fact that once again, another year goes by where Canadians are spending more, and it's not like they're choosing to voluntarily. That Canadians are forced to subsidize not just the central planners in government and the political and the ruling class and the bureaucracy, but I mean now all these, these corporations that are quasi arms of the government. What you're seeing today is basically, and what the Fraser Institute study has shown unequivocally with real proof, is Canadians are forced to pay for big government to the tune of more and in excess of what they do to keep a roof over their head, food in their belly, and clothes on their back. And think about that just for 1 minute. Those are the three most fundamental, important aspects of every human being. You got to have a roof over your head, you got to have food in your belly, and you got to have clothes on your back. The bare necessities, right? And as much as we recognize and realize that due to inflation and central planning and all this kind of bullshit, how expensive those things have become, but the government is stealing in excess of that. So combine housing, food, and clothing, and the government is still taking a higher portion of your income, of your wages, to subsidize their lifestyles, right? To subsidize the central planning model, than all of those other things combined. I mean, like I say, at what point in time do you not recognize that you're a slave, just with a different term, just with a different word, right? I mean, slaves, think about it, back in the day when there was real, actual human slavery. They had to be housed. They had to have food in their belly. They wouldn't be very productive if you didn't feed them, right? And they had to have clothes in their back. You had to at least, they might not have been fancy clothes, but hey, nowadays with offshoring all these jobs, where these sweatshop factories in China, this communist country, where they can produce these kinds of materials or clothing at such a cheap, ridiculous slave labor rate. Is it really that much different from the old day? Whether you're subjects, serfs, or slaves, it still comes out to the reality for all those of us that actually are alive now or in the past or further off into the future. You're still recognize that it's still, in some way, in some aspect, at least some form of slavery. I mean, when the government takes a larger portion than what you are deemed to require to put a roof over your head, food in your belly, and clothes on your back, I mean, like I say, this isn't just a matter of, helping the poor. And that's kind of the whole pretense of why we have government in the first place, right? Was to protect people, right? Well, for the protection from others, and to use to help the poor, to subsidize the poor. But we're no longer just subsidizing the poor, especially when you look at it on the landscape and realize and reflect on the fact that, hey, poor, GM, Dodge, all of the 6 big banks in Canada, Bombardier, are we really using government to subsidize the poor? No. We're so far removed from that original concept that, it's like, look way, way back, you wouldn't even be able to recognize it at this stage of the game. But anyways, let me move on. This is the first headline out of one Financial Post article. Canada's proposed tax changes are casting entrepreneurs as the bad guys, and that's bad news for the economy. So like I said, they're going after the wrong people. Now they're going after the people that create and generate the wealth, right? They don't mind messing with the lowly serfs, the typical lowly serfs, the lower class, right? The subjects and the I guess the slave class, right? Just the typical working class. They don't care too much about you. They'll throw you a bone once in a while. But as we're seeing, if they start going after, the entrepreneurs or the small to medium business owners and the people that have created and generated the most wealth in this country, I think even now they're starting to recognize that shit. Now, well, that's the beginning of the end, right? Just like in socialist Venezuela or any of these socialist countries that have gone full retard. I mean, full socialist, right? Once you go full socialist, like I say, hit the button on your clock because on the stopwatch is because the countdown is on, right? It's now just a matter of time before the end is nigh. Subportion of this headline: Ted Rechtschaffen. I was taught to take responsibility for my own success or failure. I thought that was part of the Canadian culture. In 2017, I am really feeling that culture is slipping away. No shit there, Ted. You got that one right. In 2004, I left a big bank to start a new business. Today, we are a successful business with a team of 16 people. I knew that there would be risk and a long process from startup. I probably spent 7 years of making less money than I would have if I stayed at the bank. We managed our way through the first couple of wobbly years only to be hit with the market crash of 2008-2009. Anyways, I'll post a link to this article in the description below. I don't want to keep my videos going on too long, but there was just one first article in regards to this. But I want to move on now to the next one. I'm sure this is a great story, all right? So I really do recommend that you do go in and click on that link in the video description and read the entire article for yourself. But let's move on to the next one, and this one is Terence Cochran, and once again another Financial Post headline article. The crushing fairness of government tax grabs is finally sparking revolt. And once again, this is probably in reference to the exact same scenario of going after, the entrepreneurs, the startups, the small to medium business, the people that create everything and innovate. And of course, you need the people on the ground, right? The workers, the laborers, the construction people. All those are very important. They're all, as a matter of fact, without every one of them, it'll never happen. So each individual in that process are basically just as important as the next. But when you talk about these people that start the business, put all that effort, put all the resources in initially, right? Yes, those are the people that, and of course, that's why the owners of a company get paid more than the employees. They're the ones that put all the initial investment in the capital, their intellectual or monetary capital. They're the ones that took the chance initially, right? And put their life and their livelihoods on the line to do so. So once again, kudos to the fact that the small and medium business owners and the people that are all about, business in Canada are recognizing that, yeah, we didn't speak up, right? We didn't speak up when they were going after our employees, right? Or the working class because, hey, we kind of benefit from it. But now we're seeing that, hey, now they're coming after us. And this is where we're going to start to lose some of our power, some of our economic prosperity. Now we're starting to recognize that, yeah, maybe we should have sided with our employees earlier on. But hey, we won't hold nothing against them. These business leaders, as well as much as some of them probably did see this come down the pipeline, I bet a lot of them are being hit broadside so far with this because they thought, hey, government will never come after us. We're the ones that create and generate all the income and prosperity that they plunder from us to sustain their own livelihoods. Well, hey, you were wrong. Central planners will come after you. Eventually, once they run out of people to come after, like your subordinates, yeah, they'll come for you next. You starting to see that? Sure looks like it. Doctors, farmers, and small business owners who are not the richest 1% are up in arms over Bill Morneau's private corporation reforms. So far, they have received no sympathy from the finance minister. Of course not. He's part of the political ruling elite. He don't give a shit about what you got to say. His paycheck doesn't rely on any market forces or fundamentals. He uses the forced wealth redistribution model. He's part of government. So yeah. This is where you really have to be heavy-handed, Canada. Whether you're, the employee or you employers, entrepreneur or grunt, yeah, you all got to come together and start pushing back against these fucks. You got to recognize that, you're not enemies to each other. You're actually the ones that create everything out there that we all appreciate. That has made modern life so much more beneficial, successful, and comfortable, right? It's the central planners, it's the parasites, it's the Bill Morneaus that you got to start really focusing your attention on. Herewith a proposal for a new guide to the principles of good tax policy. There are no principles. And here's a list of the 10 primary moral objectives of a good tax system. Collect as much tax revenue as possible from any source using any method that's politically acceptable and that polls well. 2. There are no other moral objectives. The validity of the above proposals can be verified and tested via reference to the daily media coverage of tax issues, the regular pronouncements of economists on tax matters, and the declarations of politicians. Existing taxes and most new tax measures break all the rules that allegedly exist. The words fairness, neutrality, integrity, equity, efficiency, and non-distortionary appear throughout tax literature and in the words of tax policy experts. But in fact, Canadian tax law is loaded with tax gimmicks, tax expenditures, multiple tax incentives and credits, deductions, preferential rates, and unfair measures. So extremely fucking complicated, where the only people that can benefit are those that are already at the very top, right? Definitely doesn't help the small to medium business owner or the entrepreneur that just want to dip their feet in the water, right? It's a recipe for a tax revolt. Hashtag tax revolt. Start putting that. Start trending that stuff around, people. Hashtag tax revolt. Or at least a few mini revolts, of which Canada has at least 2 underway. In coming weeks, for example, all Canadians will continue to follow the escalating debate over Finance Minister Bill Morneau's proposal to bring fairness and neutrality to the income tax system by changing rules governing private corporations. What does fairness mean? The government says the tax system must work fairly for everyone. In the case of the private corporation crackdown, fair essentially means Ottawa must continue to tax rich people more than others. Morneau laid out the Liberal principle of fairness in the opening words announcing the reform plan, when he recalled his government's first budget action: cut taxes for the middle class and raise them on the richest 1%. Right? It's all about that envy thing, right? Oh, socialists suck. That's the equity principle at work. Doctors, farmers, and small business owners who are not the richest 1% are up in arms over Morneau's private corporations reform. So far, they have received no sympathy for Morneau, who is also leaning on the alleged principle of neutrality. As he put it this week on Twitter, the rules are designed to help businesses grow, not shelter personal income from tax. Under this version of neutrality, the tax system apparently only encourages businesses to grow if the government collects the highest possible tax rates on personal incomes, right? Yeah, exactly. Like I say, you go after business, and that's why government hasn't done that so far, even after the great crash, right? The Great Recession of 2008. They haven't gone after the business or corporate execs or the corporate elites or even the small to medium business owners, because they realize, well, they're the backbone of the society. Yeah, sure, the sheeple, the serfs and subjects, yeah, they play a vital and important role too, but hey, they're much more easily to shove around, push around, and to dominate and control and dictate to. Business leaders, a little bit higher on the intellectual level, on the IQ level, right? So that they're not quite as easy. If we strong arm them, they have a lot of power to push back, I guess what we're seeing now, right? Another fake principle of tax policy, not unrelated to the private corporation reform, is the idea that the tax system should not favor one form of economic activity over another. A very nice principle, but one that is totally foreign to the existing tax system. Canadian tax law is loaded with tax gimmicks, tax expenditures, multiple tax incentives and credits, deductions and measures designed to favor or punish a particular set of economic actors. The other rumblings of a tax revolt are happening inside Ontario. As in some other provinces, Ontario's property tax regime breaks all the alleged principles of fairness, equity, and neutrality. The recent experience of Toronto retailers on Yonge Street, the city's main drag, highlights the plundering nature of the province's market value property assessment system. More than 100% property tax increases of $5,000 a month were to be imposed on part of the Yonge Strip's small retailers after Ontario's Municipal Property Assessment Corp, MPAC, determined that their properties would be worth millions more money if they were sold to real estate developers for condo development. Under market value assessment, properties should be valued for tax purposes based on the highest possible current use of the land. Since other properties along the Yonge Strip have been sold to condo developers at high prices, MPAC's number crunchers concluded that all properties along the Strip should be assessed at condo developer prices. Anyways, I'll post a link to this article in the description of the video as well. But yeah, I mean, come on. I mean, I don't give a fuck about this nuances, because then it's just a matter of picking winners or losers. Just about, hey, give us a break, and hey, if you want, screw the other guy. As you know, what I'm all about is no. Let's just prevent governments from fucking dictating and manipulating all actors of the economy, right? No matter what sector they in. Get the fucking parasites, right? Get these central planning fucking dipshits off of the backs of all the producers in society, whether you're an employer or employee. Like I say, employers, employees, business owners, entrepreneurs, and everyone along that whole chain needs to start coming together, right? Helping each other, right? Create that kind of business model. Create that kind of business environment where you're helping each other, right? Instead of fucking allowing central planners and governments to dictate, control, and manipulate. Because as you see, eventually they'll come after you too. Business owners and entrepreneurs, eventually they will come after you too. Now that you might be up in arm and outraged, right? Do you think your workers, do you think any employees are going to stand up and show any sign of solidarity with you after everything that you've sided with government prior to now? No. No, a lot of people will just be like, hey, whatever. Hey, government fucked me over. What do I care if they, hey, by fucking you over, it might benefit me, right? It's that race to the bottom that nobody should want to actively participate in. We got to stay above the fray, people. Like I say, let's come together and make ourselves so prosperous and so beneficial to each other that central planning governments and these political hacks and their media counterparts become just so obscure and just people that you can completely forget that they even exist. That's what we need to do. Make government so insignificant to all of our lives that we really don't give a fuck what they're saying or what they're doing, right? That's how we bring about the evolution of liberty. That's how we bring about the next phase of proper principles and ethics in regards to our social and economic lives. It's Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.